the fact that you think about these things as part of what you do, I would like to ask you on Vision 2040, is it important that companies align to the vision? Is it financially beneficial to be aligned by the vision? And what is your overall outlook of Vision 2040?
Right. So let's just put the vision in perspective for any listeners or viewers who are not fully aware of it. Mm-hmm. The vision is a general roadmap for Oman for the next 20 years, starting from 21 to 2040. And the idea behind the vision is to set ambitious targets for Oman, not only in the economy, but in the social aspect, in the environmental aspect, and the institutional aspect, the key 4 pillars for the vision. And those kind of targets that are set there as any vision are very broad. We would like to increase the income per capita, the participation in the labor market, private sector participation, safeguard the environment, improve institutional performance, the judicial system, the improving the social welfare, the social protection. So there are 12 key national priorities, and under them there are many strategic goals. What do we want for health, universal health, or specialized? What do we want for education, so on. Now, those drive much of the 5-year planning that we have. Now we're in the 10th year, or the 10th 5-year plan, since 1976, where we started our 5-year planning, which was kind of medium term, where government would invest on infrastructure, developing programs in various social and economic aspects. Now we're at the stage where we're looking at how to get ourselves to 2040 by introducing the right programs, the right type of investment. And investment doesn't simply mean structural and building new highways and whatnot. That's part of the overall development projects. But looking at, for example, the transition to e-government, proper e-government, digitization, and how to get the Omani economy to be more innovative. Now, with those objectives, there are certain initiatives such as accelerator programs such as NESDAHIR, such as the Economic Diversification Program that's recently launched, the National Employment Program.
The Royal Academy is playing a role in that as well.
Those are little sort of Lego pieces in the bigger picture. So if you take the example of the Royal Academy, one of its goals is to improve the quality of the labor force in the public sector. That's its key role.
Specifically in management.
Exactly, because much of it is... So they have various programs that feed into that. Equivalently on the private sector, and the Ministry of Labor with other partners have introduced 3 cycles ago, I believe, the I'timad program. Right, for middle management. Then we had the CEO program as part of the Diwan previously. Now all of that has moved obviously to the Royal Academy, whatever programs. Then we had the youth programs that were part of the Diwan projects, and then now are part of the Youth Center, which is under the umbrella of the Ministry of Culture and Youth and Sports. So many of these programs feed into the bigger picture of for example, improving institutional performance by improving employees in the public sector's performance. Ijada is another program to KPI or performance and appraisals. When we look at innovation, for example, we're looking at the Innovation Center under the Ministry of Higher Education. Research programs that come, the research endowments that come through the ministry, the competitive ones. We're talking about scholarships for specific areas that Oman is lacking in skills or talents. STEM programs at the university, not the university, but the schooling system. Now we have the ongoing exhibition, the innovation, I believe, exhibition that the Ministry of Education is currently running until the 15th of the month. All of these are small little bits to improve, the capacity for innovation in Omani society, but then it needs to trickle down into businesses. This is where businesses need to align themselves and say, listen, I need talent. Where am I going to get this talent? I need to look first in Oman. If I'm going to hook up to these programs, I'm going to be able to get not only engineers that are engineers, but engineers that can manage new technology, engineers that can innovate, engineers that can R&D, engineers that can do things out of the box.
Absolutely.
If you're not aligned to that vision and you go with the same business model as you used to, eventually you'll find yourself either no one wants to work for you,
or you're left behind.
Exactly. But that's a big mindset shift. We tell businesses, listen, Oman is improving in certain aspects, but business complexity is still very low in Oman. We're still an importing country.
Right.
That does not necessarily add value to the product. We are a service-based economy, primarily providing services for a small population of less than 5 million, so we're about 4.6, 4.7. Those are limiting factors. Our manufacturing is still fundamentally metals, chemicals, and, not high-value products that we see coming from. It takes time to get there. It doesn't happen in a flash, but if you don't make the right investments, that's where, just to link back to our earlier talk about Tijara talks, that's where we look at some of the examples where companies are making impact.
Right.
And are keeping up with the times and are investing in people. So one example is we spoke to the CEO, Cynthia, from Oman Cables. Now, Cynthia was a very interesting person to talk to because she was telling us about how they're investing in youth, Omani youth and women, to develop them into either to work for the company or enter into the labor market with the right skills and sets. Now, you'd think, why does a company like that, well established and has its markets, and why is it going to invest in these things? Because they're well aware that the human capital investment is critical to add value to Oman, but also to the company. There is a benefit there. Now, if you expect the government to do all the human capital investment in education, in training, and that is never going to fit your needs 100%.
Yeah.
This is what oil and gas did. They went ahead and created their own institutions that looks to feed into their requirements. This is what the banking industry did with the College of Banking and Financial Studies. They smartly thought, hang on, if we are going to build an industry of this size, whatever the size is, we need qualified people. Yes, there'll be graduates from other colleges, but we have a consortium of banks invested in this college with the central bank that is going to feed the industry with its needs. Now, the high Omanization levels, for example, that you see, it's not the key metric, but it's one that one should be proud of, is very high in oil and gas and in the financial services.
And it's due to that.
Highly, I would speculate, highly due to that. But also these industries are easier because the value in terms of wages, the value in terms of what it provides, especially oil and gas, is quite significantly high. Some would argue financial services add value to themselves, but not the overall economy, as they are an enabling factor. But that's a different story for another day, perhaps. So, again, aligning yourself to the vision is critical because that is what makes the vision happen.
So, I guess then the question is, or the question becomes, do we believe in the vision that it would happen? Who are the decision makers when it comes to the vision, and how are these goals set up? And right. you work in a consultancy, so you can look at this, you can analyze it. The regular person can't. So I would say speak to the skeptical ones.
Right. So for you to be, I like the idea that you said, do you believe in it? Because any vision has to be believed in. When His Majesty Sultan Qaboos Tayyib Allah Thara in 1970 came with a vision to see Oman as a modern country. If he did not believe that was possible, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Absolutely.
And today, Sultan Haytham bin Tariq is leading the next phase in Oman's development, the next phase in Oman's sort of move towards being, as the vision sees it, in the sort of advanced economies around the world. But his belief today, in many of his speeches, was in us, all of us, to deliver. When we came to the vision itself, right from about 2015, 2014, I was very fortunate to be one of the team that from the Sultan Qaboos University to present our ideas on what might a vision look like. And there were other teams working from other institutions, but I was very fortunate to be part of our team from SQU. And we put out what we saw as key. And I must say, it isn't very different from what we see today in our vision in terms of the points of emphasis and how might you go about it.
It's very interesting, if I may pause you here for a second, the collaborative nature of how the vision came to be.
Absolutely.
I wasn't aware of that.
There's a number, in the booklet of 2040, which is available at the website of the follow-up unit for the Vision 2040 implementation, I believe the number is about 41,000 people were engaged from start to finish. How were they engaged? Earlier on, technical people were engaged just to put out on the table what could potentially, how do we go about this? And then obviously there was some consultants that came on board to facilitate the process. But the Oman-wide engagement, town hall meetings basically, with pretty much everyone you can think of, NGOs, including women's associations and other professional associations, localities, youth, everywhere from Ascendum to Dhafar. Were engaged. The national priorities were distilled from everything that was brought out. Some things were very micro-based, some of them were more country-based kind of. That distillation came up with a sort of 12-point national priorities. These are the drivers of the vision. We want Oman to be this. We want to increase income per capita that. We would like for education to be, X, Y, Z. And under that, there was a lot of discussion. Where do we go with this, right? So we have a priority on health. But what do we want for health? We want health to be, for example, universal, meaning to reach the maximum possible number of people or the percentage in the population. Right. We would like for us to have sustainable cities. What does that mean? Smart cities? What is smart cities? And so it went from the very high level of national priority and it came down to strategic direction. Education is going to be innovative. We're going to have talented people. This could mean a lot of things. Yeah. But remember, this is at the 40,000 feet altitude.
Right. So you have to ask yourself questions like, what does it mean to be innovative?
Exactly. So that cascades into those strategic goals. Now, there are a few KPIs there, about 68 of them. About half of them are local and another half
68
KPIs. These are indicators like competitiveness, GDP per capita, educational performance in TIMS, governance indices, growth in number of enrollments, for example. I don't remember all of them. There's just too many of them. Yeah. Now, those are still at the very high level. The 5-year planning process with every 5 years picks out from that, say in education, the Ministry of Education, Higher, and the Ministry of Education will put out their programs that fit into the vision. So, for example, they're no longer just building new schools no. We're looking at, for example, we're going to accredit our colleges and universities. Why? Because I want to get to a level of quality in higher education. Who's responsible for that? The authority responsible for accreditation. Once we reach that level, we're going to go to the next level, accredit the program specifically. So I've had the opportunity as a chair for 2 of the Board of Trustees boards in 2 private colleges to go through that process. And I can tell you, it makes all the difference when people have to focus not only on educating people, but the quality of that education, the type of engagement, and reaching that milestone of getting accredited, both domestically and internationally, makes a whole lot of difference for how you look at the quality of education and the output that you have. It isn't a perfect solution where we'll have just more talented people because we're accredited. But what we're doing is we're holding the higher educational system to account. You're getting some scholarships, you're getting people paying out of pocket. It is your responsibility to ensure they get quality education.
Absolutely.
But it's their responsibility as graduates to continue that path and pursue what's best for them and for their career. So all of that needs to fall under the bigger picture. It isn't government that is going to just drive the vision. If government wants to create an innovative society, it can't do that if society does not want to be engaged.
Yeah.
Right? If we want to be better use our resources of the environment, it isn't then, from the simplest things as littering, the products that we use, the products that we demand. If businesses do not change their practices, how are we going to reach that goal? It's a combination of, or a societal effort that is required. And this is where I answer the question to the skeptic. Why is it important? Why does it matter to me? If it's not you, it's the next generation. I was going to say your kids, but I'm sure your eyes would have went a bit wide. But we need to leave Oman as a better place for the next generation. And that means a better place to live in, better place to enjoy, a better place for opportunities. And that does not happen because government is just spending here or, builds a new health center here. That's part of the story.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's what we do. You're in the creative arts right now. It's changing the content that meets the requirements of today to transition from what might be considered more traditional to something more dynamic. I don't want to say modern because modern has negative connotations as well as positive. You have a different audience today. So how do you deliver? Today we're delivering it visual as well as, we're different modes. But the content of your programs here today needs to match. Let me ask a simple question. Do you talk enough about sustainability in any form or shape?
Not as much as we should.
Right? And not sustainability environmental, sustainability financial, sustainability in lifestyle, in well-being.
Right.
Right?
These are matters that do come up organically, but I would say not as much as we should for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what we hear from external digital radio channels and others and podcasts and TED Talks, for example, are issues that are never on our radar, but need to be because in our vision, we're talking about the same issues. I hear a lot of talk from people who are involved in smart cities, for example. How do we make our cities smarter?
Right.
Right? I don't have the faintest idea.
Well, Adham is trying to lead that path, and we're all looking at Adham.
But Adham is what? 5 hours away from here. We're living in Muscat. We're living in Salalah. We're living in sort of Khasab. We're living in Sur.
Right.
What does that concept mean to us? Right? Is it access to specific services? Is it how do we access those? We're still struggling as a society with hybrid work and hybrid learning.
Yeah.
Right? That's when you asked how does a culture might change.
You went ahead there.
Right?
Yeah.
I tell my students at university, listen, next week I'm engaged in so many different engagements. I cannot be there, but your lectures are online and they're available for you, right? That's not a fantastic jump to online learning, but I want them to be able to get used to the idea that learning does not stop because your professor is not there talking to you or engaging you. There are different modes of engagement. That I think is the way that we think about our vision is a transformation, and that's what it is. If we're waiting for someone to tell us what to do about the vision, that's a bit of a problem because we have very small roles to play, but come together, these come, all together. We often, I guess, have these expectations that if it isn't a big splash, it's not worth making.
Yeah, which is false.
Yeah, right? The small little pebbles get left on the beach or the bank of the river or whatever because they're not going to make a big splash. They're not going to be able to bounce as much. But that's one more pebble that you're adding to the pile that's already out there.
And you never know what cascading effects that one pebble may have.
Exactly.
One person, say, slips on that pebble.
Yeah, which is not what we want, right?
But point being is you don't know what effect this small little action that you may have. I've witnessed throughout the years that sometimes big change happens from just one or two individuals.
Butterfly effect.
A butterfly effect. It could be as much as just an idea. It might not seem significant at the time, but that idea grows and evolves into something. So absolutely. So I guess going back to the skeptic, I know that there's a lot of people out there who the last few years has made them jaded. There's been some economic difficulties, maybe salaries have not gone up, and they just feel just jaded by everything. Things are tough for them. And then when you might talk to them about Vision 2040, they will immediately dismiss it. How do you convince that person? Or should we even bother trying to convince that person?
I don't think it's about convincing because opinions and convictions are very difficult to shift. Those of us who debate often will always realize, you're talking to either the converted or to yourself. Others won't change their mind, right? Sometimes I think to talk to someone who does not capture the full picture, not because they're unaware, they just choose not. I don't care. We're selfish beings. Even those who give, those who volunteer, we're still selfish beings. We're human beings.
Of course.
We do something that helps others but rewards ourselves, right? So the big picture for all of us, including myself, is not always easy to get your head around it. So you leave it for someone else to worry about. But why do we burden people by the discussion of a vision or a plan or whatever it is if they're already struggling with certain things that are closer to home? You know, putting food on the table, making sure that their children's their obligations are met, whether it's schooling, health, or whatever it is. We need to be mindful when we talk about these big issues, not just 2040, sustainability and silver economy, work culture. A lot of these things don't matter to many of us because either we don't care or we don't sense that it's close.
Right.
We need to understand that not everything on the grand scale necessarily affects me personally, but it affects my society.
Which in turn affects you, but very indirectly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So climate change. We don't sit. Do you ever sit with your friends and say, oh my God, temperature's gone up by another 1% this year?
It's too far away of a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when we talk about 2.5% increase in the global temperature in 2100,
yeah,
none of us are going to be alive in 2100.
No, good luck, grandkids.
Exactly. So
Deal
it's
with
someone
that.
else's problem, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But when I find, as you said, my income isn't growing as fast as I'd like at all.
That's very immediate.
You know, it's more immediate. So a vision of 20 years is not going to solve the problem today, naturally. So you need to be, when you talk to people about strategy and you set out these beautiful goals, you need to drill down to what each individual can or can't do to achieve that bigger goal. So, you know, for people who are jaded, as you've described, one would always advise, although it's a bit risky to give any advice and no one should be qualified to just go out and say that, is to stay the course and not give up on what you need to do. But you need to also work on alternatives wherever possible. You know, it's easier for us to say that, but this is like talking to a startup who had extremely difficult last 2 years.
Yeah.
Some of them closed down, some of them have debt and they cannot repay it. It's not easy, but it isn't the end of the road. That's the key element. It isn't the end of the road. There's a part for society to play where it can assist people. You know, we talk about takaful in our not the insurance takaful, but really society.
Coming together.
Exactly. Helping each other. That's where our role could be. If we're talking about social protection in our economy, in our society, it's not only government that provides social welfare and unemployment benefits, part of the job security fund or whatever it is. It's a society to help each other. Let's not talk too much about the vision without understanding also the troubles of people who are going through a hard time.
Yeah.
But giving people hope through various different alternatives. For a startup business, His Majesty's graceful decision to relieve those of debts and stop them from going to jail. There's about 1,000 or so people. Psychologically, that is huge. That is saying that the state is willing to support you. But also we need to take 2 steps back and ask, how do we protect people who go through this experience? We've pushed hard, go out, start your business, do this and that. But there needs to be a protection net for those people.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm imagining that comes in the form of education or programs.
And direct support,
Right.
whether it's financial or protection from bankruptcy. Right? We have a bankruptcy law, but how does it apply to the smaller businesses? How does it apply to the sole proprietor?
Right.
Right? How do we protect you? How do we provide you? So, yes, we say failure is a learning experience, but failure is an expensive experience.
It is. It could be very, very
if it's just
expensive.
out of your savings, that's fine. But if you've borrowed money, if you're threatened by going to jail,
Yeah.
if you don't repay. So we need to be mindful. I cannot talk to a person who is ill, unwell, chronically ill about well-being and lifestyle and whatnot. They don't care. They want to have that magic pill that makes them feel better, right? That medication that is going to bring them to some sort of semblance of a normal life. So let's not talk out of context, because that only makes people more bitter or, unhappy, or just feel you're being condescending.
Yeah.
And I think that is a challenge always. We talk so much about the big picture, but we forget sometimes the small picture matters more to most of us. And, less complaining and more doing if we can. How can we do that? That's always a big question.